G'day, I'm Alister Christie from LearnDelphi.tv, and I am today on the line with Jim McKeeth from Embarcadero. Welcome, Jim.
Hello, good to be here. I'm Jim McKeeth from Embarcadero Technologies. I'm the new lead developer evangelist working with David I. Previously and still continuing, I'm the host of the podcast at Delphi.org as well. So,
Indeed, and hopefully we're going to continue to see podcasts from.
Yes, we will.
Excellent.
And hopefully now I will be able to get more people inside Embarcadero on the podcast. They're usually
Indeed.
busy. They're always quite busy.
Yes, which is probably a good sign, but
Yep.
Busy making Delphi better. And I understand you've been at Embarcadero for a couple of weeks now. How are you finding it?
Yeah, this is my second week. I've been enjoying it quite a bit. I'm really struck with how busy everybody is as far as working on making Delphi better, promoting Delphi, stuff along those lines. It's a lot of people very focused on what they're doing here, so that's a good thing.
Indeed. So are you shifting to Scotts Valley? Are you staying where you are?
I am staying where I am. I still going
Okay.
to live in Boise, Idaho for the foreseeable future. Actually, next week I'll be visiting Scotts Valley, but it's just visiting. I'm not moving.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. No, it's pretty good. Sort of the modern technology these days, the telecommuting and all that kind of stuff is starting to work quite well.
Yep. Just connect to the VPN. It's just like I'm in the office.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. I'll be traveling a lot too, so it doesn't matter where I'm living at since I'll never be home.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So what are your plans in terms of enhancing the MVP program and what have you? Have you got any ideas there?
So yeah, big part of our responsibility here is to run the MVP program, which is the Delphi, or actually we have Delphi and other products as well, the C++ Builder, Interbase Evangelist, or MVPs. And the MVPs are most valuable professionals. They're people that use our products, be Delphi or whatever, and make a lot of noise about it. They talk about it online. They make podcasts, blogs, videos like you do. And those individuals are MVPs. And so MVPs are our opportunity to recognize these people and support them. And so something I want to do is just try and the MVP program is fairly new, and so I want to try and organize a little bit more. We have I think about 60 people, and start adding more people all over the world, and look for locations we don't have individuals and reach out and find people there that can be MVPs, and then look at ways that we can support them better as far as just communication from Embarcadero, as far as providing them with demos and opportunities to share information. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a neat program.
Yeah, I've quite enjoyed being part of it. There's not been a lot happened in it as yet, but yeah, obviously that's going to change very shortly. So something to look forward to. And if
apparently it's grown quite fast, quite quickly. It was originally started out with just a few people just a few years ago, and now there's, like I said, almost, I think, 60 or more.
Yes, I think presently I'm the only MVP here in New Zealand, and there's a couple in Australia, but I don't think Australasia is very well represented presently. So hopefully that will change.
Yeah, well, if you know of anybody, you can just certainly let me know, and I'll reach out to them. And
right. So if people think they they've got vlogs and stuff like that, and they want to be an MVP, they would contact you.
Yep, you can contact me. There's a information on our website. If you just search for Delphi MVP, you'll find it. Or you can just email me, just jim.mckeeth@embarcadero.com.
Excellent. Yes. No, I think I'm hoping it'll be quite fun. I've been doing Delphi videos for 6 or 7 years now, and it's good to have a bit of sort of recognition from Embarcadero in that area and stuff.
Yeah. What was when you started doing Delphi videos, what version of Delphi were you working on?
I think 2006 was
2006.
when I was doing videos. Yeah, and then of course 2007, and yeah, sort of various versions since then. In my job, I'm primarily doing stuff in Delphi 2007 and XE2.
Okay.
So they're the sort of versions I'm most familiar with. Yep.
Delphi 2007 was a good version. It was that's where we saw the new memory manager and stuff in there. That was a lot of people I used to always tell them, if you're not using 2007, at least upgrade to that one.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Because
think
that was a big.
um, Delphi 7 was kind of like a lot of people stalled on that because Delphi 8 wasn't all that great. It would be
Yep.
a generous comment. 2005 wasn't overly stable, and 2006 was better, but Delphi 2007 was the first like really stable version of Delphi since Delphi 7. So
Yeah, Delphi 2007 was. I almost felt like it was like a rebirth of seeing a good Delphi releases.
yeah,
It was a substantial release. It was very stable, lots of improvements, and then I think going forward since then, we've seen a lot of good Delphi releases.
yeah, no, each version has pretty much been better than the last in terms of stability. I noticed a few regressions, particularly to do with data snap, client data sets, some really obscure issues, but that did come up when I was making my client datasets video. I mean, it's not something I would have come across normally.
Yeah.
To do with constraints on fields, and there was some weird issue with integer constraints not working, but other constraints were working, so it's quite obscure. I don't think very many people would have noticed it or had an
Did
issue
you
with it.
submit? Those got fixed though.
I believe so. I haven't actually double checked it because it's not something I've ever had to use previously. So it was just because I was making a video on client datasets and going through everything in minute detail that I came across it. But yeah, there was already a bug report for it,
Okay.
so I just sort of voted up that one. And added some comments.
Something I've learned since coming to Embarcadero is so Marco Cantu joined as the product manager about a year ago, I guess it was, and he's apparently a big data snap champion, if you were, and
Yeah,
really driving a lot of improvements and enhancements to data snap and getting it a lot more stable and stuff. So
excellent. Yeah, it's used a lot. I haven't used the new data snap very much. Mostly sort of the COM-based stuff, which it's pretty stable and pretty robust, but it is using COM, and it's a bit it's not the preferred way of doing it these days.
yeah, well, especially since data snaps for iOS, there's
Yeah,
no
yeah,
COM on iOS devices.
yeah. This
But
is this is
it,
absolutely
with
true.
with the mobile development going on, data snap's becoming really important, I think, because you want to have access to that database that's out on that database server someplace
Oh,
on your
indeed.
mobile device. And data snap's great for that.
Yeah. No, I think yeah, I've been quite lazy. I haven't really got into doing iOS development. I've got a Mac VM going on my Windows laptop, and could play around a little bit with that. But I'll probably have to buy a Mac Mini or something like that at some stage.
So you have a Mac VM going right now?
Yes, it's a bit of a hack to get it going. Um, you
Yes,
need a
yes, the Hackintosh. I've heard about those.
Yeah, so particular version of VMware Workstation, and um, yeah, apply various patches to it to allow it, because by default it won't allow you to boot a Mac VM. So probably very much against the terms and services of uh, um, uh, the probably both VMware and what have you, OS 10. But it's good to have a bit of a play before I lay out a huge amount of money on a Mac.
Yeah. Well, another option, if you want to start doing Mac stuff without getting a Mac, is to look at Mac in
Mac in the
Cloud.
cloud, yeah.
Yep. And I think there's a promotion going on for Delphi XE4 users that get a discount on Mac and Cloud, or like some free time on it or something like that. So
Yeah, I should. I mean, would like to start doing mobile development. I think it's the way things are going. Personal computers have shifted from desktops to laptops and now to tablets and phones. So I think the personal computer of today is now very much mobile.
I think mobile's a big part of it, and something that I'm starting to see Google's doing a pretty good job with. Like, for example, if I search for directions on my desktop, right? So I'm going to go someplace, I search for directions on my desktop. If I get up and leave and then pull up my Android phone, it'll actually have that directions. I can pull that up, those directions, and that's really awesome. I think that's something we're going to see a lot more of, and I think that's something we need to see a lot more of, is the integration between the desktop and the mobile device.
Indeed. Yeah.
So that your mobile device is a continuation of what you're doing on the desktop.
Indeed. I mean, there's pretty good integration of Gmail and the calendars and all that kind of stuff, and bookmarks and various things like that.
Do you remember that? Did you see was Avatar, the Avatar movie?
Yes.
It was a few years back, James Cameron's. I remember there was a scene in there where they were working on this big workstation, and they bought this little tablet up next to it, and it took what they were working on the workstation and put it on the tablet.
Yep.
And we were talking about that. Everybody thought that was great, but I mean, that was kind of a nice. A lot of things you see stuff in movies that are done in a way to make it very visible to the user, but really not practical. I don't know that I need to hold my iPad up to my computer to get the data off of it, but some way of taking exactly what you're working on, that application or that chunk of data, and moving it to your mobile device so that you can continue working on it. I think that's would be a great innovation.
Yeah, I suppose it's sort of all if it's all sort of cloud computed kind of stuff, and you only carry around a screen with you, or go from your big screen to your tablet or phone or whatever.
Cloud computing is interesting, and I think that's an important step. But I was working on a video the other day, editing a video on my Mac, and I wanted to take it with me and show it to somebody. And so I grabbed my iPad, and it was a pain because sure, I could save it to the cloud and have it show up on my iPad, but then I has to upload, which, for a document, it's not a big deal, but a video, a couple of gigabytes takes a while to upload, and then download it on my iPad. So I had to actually do a direct connection, except it turned out that this iPad was synced to my desktop, not my MacBook. So you can only sync it to one device, and so I couldn't sync it that way, so I had to go through some other channel, and it ended up being way more work than it should have been.
Yeah, I've used an application called Good Player on the iPad, and that allows you to transfer a video off SMB share, so Windows share or other stuff. It's quite good. Or play directly from all sorts of DLNA server or a file share or anything. I find it quite good.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, and typically it's only $5 or something. For desktops, really Apple have changed the game in terms of pricing of software in many ways. Going from software that was games and things which previously you would have paid $100 for, is now a $1 or $2 game on the iPad. And I think Steam, if you use Steam Powered, for downloading games and buying games, it's kind of changed the pricing on games quite considerably.
Yeah, it's interesting because mobile devices, the prices have come way down, but when Apple released their App Store for Apple, on Mac, the prices weren't that much cheaper than you would have paid otherwise. Okay. So interesting. I kind of expected, it's like, woohoo, now all the software is going to be cheap on the Apple, but it's not. It's about the same price it was before. And some things, there was a couple products I were using that were free, that when they went into the Apple Store, the Mac, I'm sure what they call it, the store on the Mac, actually started charging money for them. And I figure it was because before they didn't want to mess with that billing and making money from it, but now Apple makes it easy for them to charge a couple bucks, which, it was a couple bucks, and I was happy to give it to them because it was a good product, but I thought it was an interesting shift.
Yeah. Yes, I suppose previously a lot of free programs might now be, $1 apps,
Hmm.
which I suppose in a way is a good thing because it does encourage more development on such things.
Yep.
So,
But it's interesting. You got to look at the balance of things. As a consumer, you'd love to have things be free and cheap, but when the
indeed,
realization is that if it's free and cheap, that means the person that's making it, can't necessarily afford to make it anymore.
indeed. I mean, of course, there are other ways of monetizing, the
There
advertising and
is.
sponsorship and all that kind of stuff, which obviously we'll start seeing a lot more of, and probably more on the desktop as well. Sort of apps with Google Ads or something in them. It's shifted to mobile devices, but not so much desktop applications as yet.
Well, there we saw that for a while, that you saw mobile or desktop applications that had ads in them, but I think that's gone away now. Because I remember there were a few programs that I had that had ads in them, but I don't see that anymore. That was quite a while ago, though.
Oh, mind you, the Microsoft like Office, is it Home Starter or something like that, their free version, that has a panel down the side with ads in
Oh,
it.
really?
Yeah, so
Really? I
um,
haven't used that version, so.
yeah, well, it came with my laptop, so I haven't. I mean, normally I'd probably just use OpenOffice or something like that for.
Are they ads for Microsoft
Yes,
products?
they
Like,
are. Yes,
so
by
it's
the
not
full
like
Office.
ads for Bill and Ted's Excellent Window Washer or anything like that.
Yeah, no, it's well, presently they might change in the future, of course, but yeah, presently it's sort of upgrade to the full version of Office or kind of thing.
Yeah, I used to use a program called, I want to say Net Vampire or Web Vampire or something like that. That was a download manager
Hmm.
back in the day when it was hard to download big files because you
Oh
always
yeah.
interrupted and whatever. And it had an ad version you get that have a banner ad across the top. But then when you paid money, the banner ad went away. And
Mm.
Eudora was the one, an email client I used for years, and it had ads in the corner. Oh,
Okay.
Evernote. If you have the free version of Evernote, it has ads in the corner too.
Oh, okay.
Most of those ads are for
Uh,
Evernote or Evernote related products, but I think they have non Evernote related ads in there too.
okay. Yes. Yeah. It'd be. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think a lot of stuff. Um, for to be the sort of most commonly used version of whatever, it often becomes a race to be free. Who can work out the monetization model for not charging consumers?
Yeah.
So
Well, I read an interesting article. I think it was by Joel Spolsky. Spolsky. I,
Spolsky,
I
yeah.
think I Spolsky. Yeah. Anyway, he was talking about the commoditization of how hardware wants to commoditize software, and so was saying that for a hardware vendor, they want all the software to be free on that hardware, and that makes the hardware more valuable. But the
Yes,
software vendor wants the hardware to be cheaper, so that the software is more valuable. And so you got the opposing forces there, and so that's why you see Microsoft, gives away great deals on. Well, and then Microsoft wants the software on Windows to be better and cheaper than the software on Apple, and so that's why Apple gives away their developer tools. Microsoft has free versions of their developer tools. Is in a competition to draw people to the platform and reduce the
indeed.
potential costs so that their product can be more valuable.
Yeah, I think Microsoft's pretty much willing to give away, anything to developers to get more software written. And I'm sure,
Yep.
particularly for their Win8RT and stuff, which is not perhaps getting as much attention as they would like.
Yeah.
So,
I've been using Windows 8 since in the betas, and I actually really like it. I don't use the WinRT apps as much though as the desktop apps. But as far as a desktop operating system, I think it's fabulous.
yes, yeah, I've got Windows 8 on um, two machines, and I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, I think the one of the coolest things is the copy file dialog now gives you a little
Oh yeah,
graph. I think that's quite awesome.
it gives you a graph, and plus, if you're copying files, it used to be if you had a directory structure and you're copying a directory structure over it with files in it, it would just say, "Hey, these directories already exist. Overwrite," and you'd say yes, and then you store everything in there. Now, if you do that, it comes up and says, "These files exist in these directories over here. What do you want to do with them?" And you can actually go through and check each one, keep this one, or whatever you want to do, or keep them all. And so that's a huge improvement.
I have not come across
and the
that.
thing, for years, people were saying, why doesn't Microsoft Windows support PDFs, right? PDFs are pretty universal.
Yep.
There's a PDF viewer built into Windows 8. And you can print, I think you can print a PDF pretty universally from a lot of stuff too. So there's a lot of improvements. And of course, the Windows key X, the power user menu, is a very awesome feature. Have you seen that one?
No.
In Windows, hit Windows key X in Windows 8, and it brings up a little menu down in the corner where your start menu would be, or used to be. That's like all the stuff as a power user you want to do.
I'll try that. Oh, okay. So, indeed, that's quite a command prompt and explorer and
command prompt as administrator even.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's always a bit of a hassle getting a command prompt as administrator. Actually go into the start menu and right click and run as administrator.
Yep. So yeah, there you go. You can just that's a useful feature. But I hear Windows 8.1 they're talking about putting the start button back.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the start menu was a particularly good idea originally, but people have just gotten so used to it that they don't really know what to do without it, I think is.
Yeah, well, if you look at lots of versions of Linux, or Linux desktops have an equivalent now of that.
They do, yeah. Yeah, I think Ubuntu has one in the top left by default.
Yep.
Actually, I don't know what window manager they're running. But yeah, I used to run Linux on my desktop many years ago, but it's being sort of a Windows programmer, it's a bit awkward to run Linux. So, but I suppose there's a VMware for Linux, isn't there? So maybe that would be a possibility.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it was interesting actually. I was teaching a class on Android development a while back.
Mm-hmm.
And my class was evenly split between Windows users, Mac users, and Linux users.
Oh, really?
So
wow.
it was quite surprised to see that split like that.
Oh, I'm surprised. You got some Linux users there. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised too. And some of them, I think somebody else had set them up with Linux and said, "Here."
Oh, okay.
So they probably were having, virus problems or something on Windows, and so someone said, "Here, now you're on Linux. You can't have viruses anymore."
Yeah, indeed. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're obviously a Mac user now. You MacBook and.
Yeah, I have a MacBook, although I'm still a Windows user.
Yeah.
Still use Windows a lot, although it's one of those things in order to do Mac development, you have to have a Mac. So, and
Yes.
you can legally run Mac or Windows on a Mac, but you can't run Mac OS on
in
Windows.
reverse, which is annoying. But I guess Apple make quite a bit of money on their hardware, so they don't want to go losing that revenue stream.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, well, and one of the things about Apple that makes it such a I've been a iPhone user for years and then recently switched to Android phone, and on iPhone you have a really nice tight integration between all the apps, but you don't have as much flexibility about changing the apps. Whereas on Android, you don't have that tight flexibility, but if I want to change my dialer, new dialer. If I want to change my lock screen, that's just an app I download. So, and I think that's similar to Windows versus Mac. In Windows, whatever hardware you want to use, you can use. On Mac, it's Mac hardware. I mean, there's some variations, obviously, but for the most part, it's Mac hardware. and so they only have those few drivers. Apple certified those drivers, the ones they're going to use, and that fixes it all for them. I've heard a lot of reports that a lot of the problems on Windows that we see are actually driver issues for, Bill and Ted's excellent video cards drivers aren't very good.
Yes, and they run in the kernel space, so
Yep.
and
And
bring
so
the
yeah.
whole machine down. So yes.
So now I saw you had a Learn Delphi video on FireMonkey, but that was just Mac. That wasn't iOS then.
I have done Fishfax for iOS. That's the only
Okay, that's what I thought.
application
Okay,
I've
I thought
written.
you'd done Fishfax for iOS.
So just
But then
using
when
the
you said
simulator.
you hadn't done iOS yet, I was like, oh, I'm remembering wrong.
Well, I don't think that really counts. I got as far as compiling an app, really. And that's about. But I haven't deployed to a physical device yet. I do have an iPad too, which I'm quite fond of.
Yeah.
And yeah, and if I actually get into doing a bit more, I'll buy a iPod Touch or something like that. But at the moment,
it's pretty neat, I think, building an app and running it on your hardware, and also seeing this app you created and see it running on your device. I think that's a neat experience.
Yes, yeah, I've written a few Android apps. In fact, I've got a video on using DataSnap to talk to Android devices. It's one of my commercial videos. I did a presentation in Australia for the ADUG, the Australian Delphi Users Group. They do a symposium every year, and I managed to talk to that, which is quite good fun. Malcolm Groves also spoke on MVVM, which I saw his code rage presentation, which was pretty good, but it didn't really click with me quite so much. But certainly the seeing it live in Australia twice helped a lot. And I think if I was building applications from scratch, that's the way I'd go. So there's a good separation between sort of the model and view.
Right.
Or model, view model.
Yeah, model, view model. So it's three pieces. Just the third piece has got two letters in it.
Yeah.
You have the model, you have the view, and you have the view model.
Yeah, and really the model is not. You don't really think about the model too much in MVVM. It's mostly the model, the view and view model, and the model can be anything.
So yeah, your model would be your data source, right?
Yeah. Yeah, or data
and then
module.
Your view. What's that?
Or data module or something like that.
Yep, the data module. Something that contains your data, and then your view is your form.
And the view model is all your presentation logic.
Yep. What brings
separated out. So it allows you to do multiple interfaces fairly quickly. So if you have your Windows version and or Windows and Mac, so desktop version and tablet version and phone version, and all you're changing is the form layouts, which you might be able to do with a bit of inheritance as well, visual form inheritance, to minimize the actual development that's required.
Yeah, it's a good idea, like exactly that scenario you gave, because you can make an app that is single source, single UI for all those platforms, but the reality is there's probably going to be some changes you're going to want to specifically handle on each platform.
So you're going to have enormous buttons on the desktop version or something,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think the paradigms are very different, sort of UI paradigms. So,
it's I was talking to somebody and they said that as in like the enterprise, where you have like a company has apps that they're giving their users to use, that they actually prefer to have everything exactly the same on each platform, even though it doesn't, from a usability point of view, like you said, there's different paradigms. But from their IT support staff, they don't want to say, are you using a Mac or using an iPad? What are you, they just want to say, see the button that says this on the left, click it, and tell
true.
And be done.
Yes. I find, supporting desktops is quite straightforward in terms of, because it's like remote control software and stuff that you can use. But, supporting a phone, it's back to the old days. It's, what can you see, what's in this box, and that's I forgot how painful that was. Because we've been using Tight VNC and LogMeIn remote where I do write real estate software 1 day a week, and very much, we just take control of the computer and solve the problem, and it's all done in a couple of minutes, rather than spending 10 minutes on the phone trying to work out with a non-computer user. Real estate salespeople are not the most tech savvy. It's been changing over the years. They're becoming more so, but yeah.
It's interesting, actually. On Android, the settings. So on Android, they have the concept of data providers. Yeah, data providers. I think that's what they're called. And no, that's not what it is. I'm totally spacing the name of it. Anyway, the idea is that if you have two different applications that are working with contacts, for example, both those applications use the same set of data. And so a number of things in Android use this concept. I want to say it's called data providers. I'll have to Google it. But the idea is...
Yeah, they're kind of like a URL or something like that you associate with your service or whatever.
Right, and then you
call
can...
that from different applications.
Yep, and then other applications can read and write to your application. And so one of the things that has a data provider is the settings. All the settings on Android are actually exposed through that. And so you could have an app on Android, like if you had your real estate app, that if they were connected to your server, you could actually push changes down into their settings through your app. And that, of course, that's a permission. Most people aren't going to give that permission to every app, but you could always push that down and make it.
It's like the terms and services. I don't think people are looking at the permissions in great detail.
No, most people aren't, and most people are probably relying on the consumer watchdog type people,
Indeed.
In hoping that some website somewhere is reading all these terms and services and all these permissions and saying, why does Angry Birds need access to X permission, and
the phone dialer or whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting. iPhone has a smaller set of permissions that they deal with. Android has very granular permissions.
Very fine grained,
you see interesting things on Android where exactly why does Angry Birds need to know when you have an incoming call? But the reality is they do that so that they can pause the game when a call comes in.
Indeed.
And so as a consumer, it's like, why does Angry Birds need to know when I have an incoming call or know who my caller is? But they're not. They don't care about that. They just want to pause the game when the phone rings. So it's not always logical. And so the result is that apps have these laundry list of permissions they need, and users quit reading them. They just click through them and say, whatever.
Yeah.
I want to fling birds at pigs.
Indeed.
They actually did a social experiment a while ago where they went outside of a business and people were coming out for lunch and they offered them a candy bar in exchange for their network password.
Yes.
And people were giving them their passwords for candy bars.
Yeah, it was like $20 for your PIN number for your ATM machine, kind of thing.
Yep.
And a lot of people, because it's just the PIN number, they haven't got the card, so what's the harm, sort of thing. But yeah, it's quite amazing that maybe stand outside and I don't know, sign up souls or something in a devil's outfit or something and see what how many people are willing to sell their souls. I suspect there'll be quite a few, but
there was a Dilbert a while ago where Dilbert became Bill Gates' towel boy after not reading any license agreement on Windows software.
Oh, right.
He clicked through it, and next thing you knew, he's Bill Gates' towel boy. That was a theme for a little bit.
Okay, I haven't been following Dilbert in a long time.
This was a long time ago, but
okay. Yeah.
Me neither.
Yes. Should probably read more Dilbert and more XKCD, is it?
XKCD. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, where are you located at? You're in
So in Wellington, New Zealand.
Wellington, New Zealand. Yeah.
So specifically Judgeford, if you want to Google it. We've got a lifestyle block, which we just moved on to a few months ago. So we've got 5 hectare, which is 12 acres for those metrically challenged.
Wow.
And yeah, a horse, some chickens, and a couple of sheep. We've got a bunch of the neighbours' cows wandering around our land at the moment. It's 5 cows, which have just sort of turned up. We had some really big storms, and there's a fence across the river, which got somewhat washed, a bit of it washed away, so that the cows have been able to wander through that. But we don't have much objection because the grass was getting a bit long in the paddocks. You don't want to go mowing 5 hectare of grass.
No. I've had to do that before. That's no fun.
Yeah, it's all quite hilly too, so not flat, so with the river going through and sort of a bit of a river valley. So we're enjoying that.
It's always interesting when I'm doing my podcast, talking to someone and realizing they're on the other side of the planet. But I think this is the first time it struck me, because you're wearing the fingerless gloves.
Yes,
that it's freezing cold where you're at, and where I'm at, it's really hot.
So yeah, I was going to I probably should have put the fire on, but my partner left this morning, and I commented, and she said, I don't know. I guess I was, not being a man enough or something like that. But the fire, I said, oh, okay, I won't put it on then.
It's just, it's one of those things, the concept, I understand the concept of time zones and also the tip of the earth, and that, half of the earth's hot and half of the earth's cold, but it still blows my mind to think about, that it's freezing cold where you're at and my kids are in the pool right now.
Yeah, I mean, 100 years ago, you would have had to send a letter or a telegram or something like that, and
yep.
That would have, if it was a telegram, probably take half a day to get to you, and a letter might take several weeks, months. So the whole issue with talking to someone in a different time zone or climate is just sort of recently, and it's really, with the sort of the video conferencing has really been driven home.
Yeah,
it's quite amazing to be able to talk to someone on the other side of the world, different time of day. Yeah, completely different weather. So, yeah.
So now you work on some banking software and real estate software, both of which are written in Delphi, right?
That's correct. So, we're presently working for a bank 4 days a week, and doing stuff in sort of CRM software, tracking customers, obviously, and that's written in Delphi XE2. And we might have a go at getting it in XE4 in sometime in the near future. And the real estate software is in Delphi 2007, which is because of an abandoned component called Form and Report, which is here in New Zealand we have the real estate contracts historically have been pre-printed, and you write on them in pen or type over the typewriter, or if you're sophisticated, you have contract overprinting software, which is one of the aspects of our software. So you feed these contracts through the printer and overprint on top of them. But that's now becoming less common, so we've hopefully got to drop this component. And I managed to get the product's called Sales Partner, and I managed to get that compiling in Delphi XE yesterday. So sort of hacking a whole bunch of stuff out and what have you, and it was doing some horrible crashes when it closed, but I managed to solve that one. But yeah, so I'm hoping to get that. I'll probably get stuck at XE2 because of we've got this 3-way dependency, quick reports, QI design, and T-chart, which is always a pain to get them all compiling and playing nice together. And so Delphi XE3 introduces the namespaces quite strongly on um, on unit names, so I don't think I'll be able to get an old version of tchart compiling in XE3 or 4. So I might get stuck in XE2 for a while, or move off quick reports. That's the other. But we've got hundreds and hundreds of reports, and with the ability for customers to edit reports and stuff like that. So they've customized them, and shifting to another reporting engine would be quite a challenge.
Actually, I was working one place a while ago software was written in Delphi 5, and they had a component that didn't have source code for. It was one component they didn't have source code for, and they stopped producing it. And so they couldn't go forward, and so I had to make an adapter pattern around a different component so that it would work like the old component.
Okay.
And so I was able to do it, and it worked, and we're just fine. We were able to go forward to Delphi 7 at the time, was the version we jumped to.
Okay. Yes.
That's always a bummer when that happens.
Yes.
Delphi, that's one thing that was with Delphi when it came out, and it included the source code for the VCL and the RTL, that it kind of set a precedent to have the source code to all your components when you get third-party components.
Yeah, I don't use many other languages very much, or third-party components. So, do you typically get source with other, C# and Java? I suppose Java. I don't know.
So Java's got a culture around open source, but so I think with Java you frequently get component source code, but I don't know if that's always the case or not. I think pretty common with Java. C#, it's mixed in .NET.
Okay.
Some of them, most of them that do offer source, it's a premium. Of course, that's the same with Delphi. But with C# and Java both, though, because it's an interpreted language, well, I'm going to say interpreted language, and someone's going to say, no, it's not. Yeah. Decompiling it's actually quite easy. If they use an obfuscator, then you can obscure the names of the identifiers, but it's still really easy to decompile and get to the source code. But without the names, it's less meaningful.
Yes. Yeah. That's quite. Yes, looking at lots of source code with one character variable names. That's really not fun. Look at the minified JavaScript and stuff like that. It's quite incomprehensible.
Some of the obfuscators in .NET space, at least, will actually use non-printable characters in the names identifiers too. So, yeah, it can be quite ugly.
Yeah, especially
because
if it's Unicode, there's lots of characters that look very similar.
Yep.
As well.
Exactly.
I suppose you could be using, Japanese or Chinese characters as well, which to me one would look very much like the other. So, yeah.
You would need to run it, decompile it, and then run it through something in order to replace all those non-printable characters with printable characters. But then you're still going to have they're meaningless. And then you can have reuse identifiers too, based on scope. And so, just because you see, this little symbol, even if it's the exact same symbol over here, it might be a different symbol. It might be a different meaning because it's in a different scope. So, they can be pretty nasty.
Yeah. So, do you have a favorite version of Delphi? Sort of all time.
Favorite version.
Not necessarily the best version, but the one you have most fond memories of.
I used Delphi. I did a lot of cool stuff with Delphi 7. Then I think 2007 may have been my favorite for a while because it was such a great version. And then 2009 with generics was pretty cool. I was excited to see generics.
Indeed.
And,
yeah.
But since then, really, they're just keep coming out with new things. It's just always exciting to see what's next and what we can do with it and stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty fond of 2007. I've partly because I've used it so much, and because it was just an excellent version compared to the previous. It's a sort of huge step up in stability and features and what have you.
Yep.
So
Yeah, the generics and anonymous methods and Unicode in 2009 were huge steps forward. The Unicode, it was actually, I think it was good that we finally got Unicode, but I think the reality was it was actually late. You know what I mean?
indeed,
We should have gotten it a while ago, but hey, we got it now, so I guess that's what's important.
yeah, Unicode's not a big deal for me. All my apps are sort of English language only, so
Hmm.
64-bit was not. It's kind of not very exciting for me either. But I realize, that's hugely important to some people, particularly if they're writing. I came across someone, did a bit of consulting for someone doing DLLs for AutoCAD, and that 64-bit was a big deal for them.
For sure.
But yeah, I have not needed to allocate more than 2 gig of RAM for for an app or at all. So
I used to work for a company that was interesting. We were getting demands to make an international version of our application, and we're trying to figure out what to do. And then was heard that the next version of Delphi, 2009, was going to be Unicode, and it's like, oh, let's go for that. Wait for that, and sure enough, it came out Unicode, and that was great. It was to get that. It was right at the right time. And then of course, one of our servers needed to have more than 2 gigs of RAM, so we decided we're going to wait for the 64-bit Delphi and then to get that. So that was good timing there, but yeah, some people don't need it, and that's fine.
indeed. I mean, they might, come a time when I do need it for some reason, and then having it will be very handy.
Yeah, definitely 64-bit is going to become more and more important.
Yeah, indeed. Yes. Sorry.
I was going to say it's probably not too far off that Windows will become a 64-bit operating system. Most computers you buy today have 64-bit version of Windows on them.
Yes.
And
they still
in
run
a few years,
it'll
probably be the standard that they'll want to remove the 32-bit interoperability in order to make Windows more performant, right? So
Indeed.
A while back they removed the 16-bit, some of the 16-bit backwards compatibility stuff.
Yeah, so that went out with Windows 64-bit.
Yep.
So if you've got a 64-bit version of Windows, you can't run whatever your favorite Amy Pro or whatever your favorite 16-bit app.
Yep.
But I think if you've got the 32-bit version of Windows 8 or Windows 7, you can still run 16-bit apps. And, yeah, it's quite. It is interesting. Well, presumably you could still run a VM and boot up Windows 3.1 if you were so inclined.
Well, Windows 7 that came with the Windows XP version mode, didn't it, with the VM?
I think so. Yeah, I think
it's built in as a feature in the Pro SKU.
Indeed, I've never actually used it, but yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I just bought a new desktop recently, and it's got 16 gig of RAM in it. Going to 32 wouldn't have been a big deal price-wise, but I thought I can't imagine using that much. I can't imagine using 16 gig at the moment, but 8 gig is generally quite a bit. But in terms of the overall price of the machine, it's pretty insignificant. So I thought, oh well.
Yeah, I got my new MacBook Pro has 16 gigabytes of RAM, which it's one of those things. On one side, that seems like a ton of RAM. It's a crazy amount, but the other side is like, well, that's what I thought when I got 2 gigs a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, the MacBooks aren't upgradable anymore, are they? The new ones.
The new ones, no, they're not.
Yeah, they've all the memories glued in, which is a bit of a shame. So I think the only upgradable Macs are now the Mac Minis and the Mac Pros.
Yeah, the regular Mac, the non-Retina MacBook Pros, I believe are still upgradable. I used to have a MacBook Pro, and I swapped out the hard drive and the RAM on that a few times. But yeah, the Retina ones are not. Because they're so thin, which I think it's a bummer. I mean, I like having a really thin laptop. It's great, but I would have rather seen a little bit thicker and seen it be user serviceable to a degree.
It becomes a bit disposable at that point. You need to upgrade the memory while you buy a new Mac. So, which probably might do good things for Mac sales, but not necessarily for happy customers. But.
Yeah. And Apple, I remember when Apple went to the non-removable battery, and everybody's like, oh, they're just trying to get people to buy new Macs more often because batteries are going to die. And their reasoning is that packaging the battery inside of the computer means that space that could be taken up by battery. Plus, it means you have to have a battery that's of a specific shape, right? Instead of having the battery fit in every nook and cranny. So I think there's probably some truth to that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm still a fan of user serviceability.
Yeah, I think, historically Macs have, Apple Gear has generally, they've sacrificed some functionality for, design elegance and what have you, being nice and sleek and they certainly are beautiful devices. But yeah. Have you seen the new Mac Pro?
Not in person.
No,
I've seen the pictures. Yes.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I haven't actually seen one inside, but
I don't think they're not in production yet, are they?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're still coming, but it's an interesting idea. I was looking at a schematic of it, and they have this triangle inside where they have one big heat sink in the middle, and then they have the video card and the CPU, or essentially the GPU, the CPU, and some other I/O card all sitting on the same heat core. And so the idea is that you have all the heat's taken out through the same channel. So you just need to have the one fan at the bottom blowing through it, and you're getting all of it cool.
Right.
Whereas, you crack open my PC desktop, and it's going to have a fan on the video card, a fan on the CPU, a fan on the case, and then a fan on the whatever it's called, the
chipset.
I used to know what it was called. Yeah, the chipset. Yep. So yeah. That's an interesting idea. And then of course, all the storage, I guess, on the Mac Pro is supposed to be external. So you're going to have, lightning drives or USB 3.0 or FireWire drives on it.
Yeah, Thunderbolt, I think.
Thunderbolt, that's what it's Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
Lightning is the new I/O on the iPad or iPhone 5.
Oh, yes, that's true. Yeah. Yes, I haven't actually seen a Thunderbolt port in action before, but I understand they can handle quite a considerable amount of throughput.
Yeah. Well, it's always interesting with USB and FireWire because, I guess, what was it? The USB 2 was as fast as FireWire, except USB used the CPU because Intel's pushing USB, and FireWire came from someone else. And then anything Intel pushes is going to use your CPU. That's the rule. So if Intel's backing it, know it's using your CPU. So if USB uses your CPU and FireWire doesn't, but USB is cheaper,
indeed,
and just as fast. And the reason it's cheaper is because it doesn't have to have its own processor like FireWire.
Yeah,
does.
well, I think originally, FireWire was a bit faster. It was only rated at 400 megabit as opposed to USB 2's 480. But I think you could actually more throughput through FireWire.
Yep.
And you could chain devices and stuff as well, which is quite handy. So, but yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the speed of USB 3. I've got a couple of external USB 3 hard drives, and I get sort of 200 megasecond off them, which is quite a lot more than the sort of 30 megabytes a second you get out of USB 2.
Yeah, I'm planning on getting a USB 3 hard drive for my MacBook Pro. But I just got in the mail. You seen this yet? The Leap Motion.
No.
It's a that's how big it is right there.
Yep.
And it's a USB 3 jack on it, and you plug it into your USB on your computer. And what this is it's got infrared lights and infrared sensors in here,
Mm-hmm.
and it can look in a 3D space, and you can interact by putting your hands in here and interact with objects in a 3D space.
Okay.
Without touching it. So it's a really, really cool new technology. Like the consumer devices are just now shipping, which this is one of them. They've had the developer kits out for a little while. But yeah, it's a new, it's like, remember when the mouse came out, it was not perfect. And it's like, mouse isn't going to replace the keyboard. Well, no, it's not. But certainly today, you can't imagine using a computer without it. This is not going to replace the mouse or the keyboard, but it's interesting. It's an interesting device.
Fun. Yeah, so it's sort of a similar principle to the Kinect or something like that on the Xbox.
Yep, except these are like $40, I think.
Okay.
It's incredibly affordable. And I think I spent that much on this mouse.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a Microsoft Arc mouse, which I find quite good because they just turn them off. They go flat and they fit in the laptop bag quite easily. Just quite nice.
But yeah, I know there's some people doing some Delphi work with these Leap Motions, and so like
Excellent.
I said, they're just now coming out with the consumer devices. So we'll see some interesting stuff going on with it, I'm sure, in the near future.
Oh, maybe you better do a podcast with someone or something.
Yeah. I played with it, and it's cool. It works pretty good. It's pretty cool. Like I can put my hand, and it can actually show on the screen all of my digits. It sees each finger moving individually, and with both hands. If you turn your hands like some angles or two fingers too close together, it loses track of them.
Okay.
But pretty cool, pretty impressive what it can do. It's not perfect, but it's pretty impressive.
What can you do with it at the moment?
So some of the apps it comes with are just 3D objects you can manipulate. Mm-hmm. So some of them you can like move your hand forward or backward to move things in and out, left to right to scroll up and down. That's one app I remember using. There's a drawing app where you can draw with your fingers. Yeah, most of the stuff's kind of gimmicky right now.
Yeah,
but I remember
the mouse first came out. You had some sort of paint application, PC Paint or something. And that was about all you could use the mouse for. So.
Well, yeah, I remember when WordPerfect 5 came out, everybody's like, "What? No mouse support!" And so they came out with WordPerfect 5.1, and it added when you move the mouse, then they'd add a menu bar along the top for a mouse menu. And about the only time I ever used that menu is when I bumped the mouse by accident and the menu appeared. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's that? But yeah.
Oh gosh,
when the mouse first came out, there wasn't a lot of use for it.
Indeed.
But anymore, you can't imagine well, I don't know. You guys, you could use a computer without a mouse, but a lot of stuff is very mouse oriented.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's tablets these days, Microsoft Surface stuff, maybe like.
Yeah, touch instead of mouse.
Yeah. And yeah, sort of the air gesturing might catch on more. And there's a whole Minority Report kind of, if you remember that movie. Bruce, yeah. I have to watch that again actually. Huh?
What I found using the Leap Motion is that, like, one of the apps that your interaction with it, you use your finger like this, and then you bring your thumb out to click. But what I found is that when I move my thumb out, I don't know if you can see, my finger moves up.
Yeah.
And another app I was using, you go like this and then move your hand like this to interact with things. And what I found is that my hand moved in unexpected ways when I do that. And so I don't know if that's a design failing in the concept or if it's a lack of physical dexterity I haven't developed yet. Because I remember when the mouse first came out, people would use it and they were like, shaking all over the place trying to get to where they wanted to go.
Sorry, you're cutting out there.
Oh,
yes.
But yeah, now I think they're getting better at it.
Yeah, so it could be, I suppose like texting as well. People, their thumb has become their most dexterous finger.
Yep.
Which is quite interesting. But Yeah, so
There is a
it could be a matter of skill and sort of training yourself to have the steady hands and be able to move your fingers without shifting your hand and that kind of thing.
Yeah. When you're on a mouse or keyboard, your hands are resting to a degree. But when
Indeed.
you're up here in space, you don't have that anymore.
Yeah, and you're probably gonna have all sorts of you know I don't know, back injuries and arm arm and shoulder and stuff kind of strain that by holding your arms out in front of you, putting strain
Yeah.
on the shoulders and stuff. So I don't know what kind of effect that'll have. I don't think touch screens are suitable for all day use.
Yeah.
In terms of holding your hands out and moving cursors and stuff.
I saw some, they're making a big campaign about people, using their tablet and looking down at it all the time, right? And being bad for your neck.
Yeah.
But then someone pointed out that when you're reading a book, you're doing the same thing. So, of course, I don't know, maybe people are on tablets more than they read books, probably. Maybe that's the problem.
Yes, I think society is becoming a bit illiterate in terms of book reading. I mean, people still read a lot of books, but I think it's becoming less and less. Kids are more into the Xbox than sitting down with a good book.
Yep.
And I must say, I don't read a lot of fiction these days. But I do actually I listen to quite a lot and sort of audiobooks and stuff. So I have an Audible account, and I get a couple of new audiobooks every month and go through those. And I find the Android Audible player is actually really quite good, and I find the typical narrators talk really slow. So I find my mind just wanders if I'm listening at regular speed. No, I can't pay
Uh-huh.
attention. But on the Audible player, in real time, you can vary the speed. So I can crank it up to 3 times normal speed, and actually get to listen to quite a lot of that. Spend half an hour listening and get through an hour and a half of narration.
Wow, 3 times. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but narrators do talk very slowly. That's quite frustrating, I find.
Yeah, that's a requirement. Is they're supposed to talk very slow. I've heard some authors being interviewed that read their own books for the audiobook version, and I kept telling
Yeah,
them, slow down, slow. And I'm like, I'm talking normal. What do you mean? But that's a requirement, is you need to talk really slow for some reason.
yeah,
Something they
yeah.
go for.
It's the. Do you watch the video game reviews? That's the Yahtzee Crawshaw, Zero Punctuation.
Yep.
There's quite hysterical it's with googling, although they're a bit adult oriented in many ways. But he wrote a book, Mogworld, and he was commenting that and he had just struggled hugely talking slow enough, and even then I think he was quite a bit faster than the typical narrator.
Oh, really?
So, but yeah, yeah, and certainly in terms of reading books, I read a lot of stuff on my iPad now. So a lot of technical books and stuff, and I have a Safari subscription, which I haven't been making very good use of, but um, and so yeah, the actual physical paper I don't interact with quite so much as I used to.
Yeah, I had a Safari for a while, and I made really good use of it for a while, and then I stopped, and I don't think I have it. Maybe I still do, and I'm paying for it, not using it. But
Yeah, I'm debating whether to continue using it. I keep thinking, I'll get back into reading lots of, because I was reading, a book a week for a while, um, and buying physical books, for instance, buy them from Amazon, but to get them shipped to New Zealand is it's sort of $20 US. And if quite often you can find second-hand books, for $1 or something like that on Amazon, with Amazon partners, but it'll cost 15 to ship it to New Zealand. So it ends up costing sort of yeah, your dollar book becomes $16 or something like that.
mhm.
So yeah, certainly ebooks just make they're cheaper anyway, and there's no shipping involved, and I can get them instantly rather than having to wait a week or two for them to be shipped from either the UK or the US.
I found it's interesting how often the ebook is only marginally cheaper than the print book, and it's like, seriously, it only cost you $1 to print that thing?
Yeah. I think there's paranoia about piracy. I think.
Yeah, they don't want to devalue the printed book too much.
Printed books, because I suppose the more ebooks they sell, the more they're going to get pirated. I don't know. I don't know quite sure the reasoning. I think if you have an electronic version, someone's going to pirate it. I don't think there's anything you can do about it, unless no one wants it. That's the other thing. But then you've got a whole other problem with your with your publication.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing somebody had taken a bunch of print books and actually chopped the spine off and ran them through a sheet fed scanner and scanned both sides of them, made PDFs out of them, and we're uploading them somewhere. And because I heard, I was like, there's no ebook version of that. And sure enough, they just scanned all the pages, and I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, probably not too hard to do though.
No, it's not.
Yeah, my partner's got a for her work a multifunction printer that's got a scanner, and it's quite cool because it scans both sides at the same time.
Really?
Yeah, I was quite impressed with that. So it only goes through the once, and it's not a particularly expensive device either. So color laser multifunction.
I saw trying to remember where I saw this at. Someone had this guide on building this device that would hold a book open, and then had a camera mounted over it, and then had a device for turning the pages, and would turn the page, take a picture, turn the page, take a picture, and could go through a book fairly quickly without damaging the book, without unbinding it.
Google's done a lot of stuff in that space.
So Google did a lot. This was something you could build at home, was the idea.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's like Lego Mindstorms and things like that. What you can do. There's a guy at work had a device for solving Rubik's cubes. So it would take a picture of each side, and then could rotate the base of it, and then had sort of two operations: rotating the base and flipping it. So flipping it one way and flipping it the other way. So I suppose it's 3 operations, and could solve a Rubik's cube, quite well. Of course, if it made any kind of mistakes.
Sorry.
One thing I have noticed on the topic of books, there've been quite a few Delphi books published lately. So Marco Cantu's kind of stalled in his production of books, which is a bit of a shame, but because I've always enjoyed reading his books. But I suppose he has been doing a few white papers and things like that. The Chris Rolston's XE2 book is really, really good. I was quite impressed. I learned all sorts of stuff reading that, even though it's kind of aimed at people new to Delphi, but covers everything up to XE2 in regards to the sort of Delphi language, not so much the VCL or anything like that. And there's an iOS book for XE2, which and of course Bob Swart has a bunch of ebooks, and someone else I bought. I can't think now, but yeah, there's been quite a few publications, and I think the self-publication thing has meant that low volume stuff has been quite possible.
Yeah, so, I think we're seeing a lot more new people coming to Delphi now too. So
yeah, I certainly I get quite a few more inquiries from people new to Delphi, which in many ways my videos are aimed towards. So it's quite good. Although most of them are VCL based rather than FireMonkey. So I think most people will be willing to get into building a new application, a FireMonkey app. But there's still people are hiring new Delphi programmers for existing projects, big VCL applications, which, as we're discussing earlier, that, have been in development since Delphi 1 or what have you. It's one of the things about Delphi is the huge backward compatibility that it's maintained.
Yeah, it's good about that.
If someone had written it in these applications in Visual Basic, they would have gone way up to Visual Basic 6 and then had to rewrite it for .NET and then WinForms, WPF, um, potentially go through quite a few iterations just to keep it current. Whereas a Delphi application has managed to stay. You take your Delphi 1 application, you can still compile it probably with a XE4.
Yeah, yeah, generally speaking, yeah. I mean, it depends on. There's always some caveats, like you were talking about earlier. You had a component that someone stopped maintaining,
Yeah,
but if you have the source code, you can generally bring it forward.
yeah, I think Delphi 2009 is probably a big stopping point with Unicode for a lot of third-party components. Um, Although in saying that, I just recently recompiled sort of a sales partner, which is sort of about 100,000 lines of code, and I just like two Unicode issues I had, and there's probably a bunch more that I need to discover. But in terms of compiling, I needed to make two changes to get that to go in XE. So I think if you're not doing very much low-level stuff with strings and making assumptions about strings
Hmm.
being byte arrays effectively, then you uh, the porting is fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I've had some code I've come across, Delphi code I've come across before that was written like C++ code, with had
Okay.
lots of pointers and pointer arithmetic, and I mean just really crazy stuff. And I'm sure that would be a pain to
Yeah, yeah.
to port forward.
There's one component, tzipmaster, which I use, and I had a brief go at compiling the version I was using in Delphi 2007 in XE, and quickly gave up on that because it's a lot of low-level operations with when it's handling strings quite a lot. So and I thought, but yeah, downloaded the new version, which was the interface is a bit different, but wasn't too hard to get that going. I mean, we got it compiling in the space of a few hours, so it was kind of think back and think, why haven't I done this ages ago? But
So I have a question for you about your Learn Delphi TV.
yeah,
What is your favorite video you did?
uh, that's a good question. I'm quite proud of my just the building VCL apps videos. There's a series of three of those.
Uh-huh.
They're 6 hours each, and it's a huge amount of effort that went into those, and they came out pretty good. And I think there's probably better coverage of the VCL there than anywhere else. All the components covered anyway.
Hmm.
Um, Even possibly the more comprehensive than the Delphi help in many ways, and because operating the visual components and they're best represented in a visual medium as so it's probably not true that I think far easier to learn from them than the Delphi help is probably a better way of saying it. Um, and yeah, it's the visual component library.
Hmm.
Is easiest to learn by seeing someone manipulate them uh, and what have you.
Sure.
So explaining drag and drop in text is a bit complicated, but when you see it, you implement the sort of 4 events that are required to get something to drag and drop, then it's
Yeah.
quite easy. But yeah, so I quite those are quite proud of, and of course the my Android one I'm quite because I did that one live. I did that twice live, and that went pretty smoothly, considering I ended up using the ad hoc network between the Android device and the PC, and I
Hmm.
had a webcam pointing down on it so I could see what uh, and that worked quite well. So that's quite good, but that's probably not the most interesting. Uh, in terms of the free ones, gosh, I don't know. So I've got about 100 of them now, so there's quite a few.
Yeah, it is.
free videos on Delphi. I most of them are about 5 minutes, but there are a few that are sort of half an hour or three-quarters an hour. Particularly the Code Rage replays.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they're pretty good. You've done a few videos as well, haven't you? You did some stuff.
Yeah. Most of. Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, yeah. So it's quite challenging, and certainly the my commercial videos are far more rehearsed, and you know, I'll practice something a few times before recording it, or I'll record it while practicing. Sometimes first time it comes out really well, so it's good to have that.
Oh yeah.
And I've kind of gotten quite good at trying. You record a couple of minutes, and then get to a point where you can, if you record the next bit and it fails, you can go back to it, and it'd be more seamless.
Hmm.
So I find if I go back to the form and then do my cuts with the form visible, it's a lot easier than if the source code's visible. Getting
Yeah,
simple.
because it's easy to be scrolled just a little bit.
Yeah, and if you've saved and stuff like that, you have all the colors down the side saying whether it's
Yep.
edited or saved or what have you. So yeah, so I've gotten quite good at that. So I've probably recorded a good at least 50 hours of video over the years. So there's quite a lot there for people who are inclined to
It's
watch.
interesting when you're wanting to produce those professional quality, how much effort and takes it goes into doing that typically, you know.
Indeed, I mean they're still I mean they're not. I wouldn't say it's like TV broadcast quality professional kind of stuff. I don't even want to watch it on TV, but
Yeah.
um, they're pretty good. And I think it's more important to get stuff out there than be too pedantic about
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Shipping's a feature.
Yeah, yeah. Perfection is one of the biggest enemies of success.
For sure.
So yeah, but yeah, certainly over the years I've had quite a lot of enjoyment and yeah, satisfaction from comments. People saying positive things about them.
So are most of your viewers, are they new to Delphi, or do you find it's a lot of people that are
Ah,
maybe new to a new version,
no,
or
yeah, I think so. I don't mean to say bad things about Delphi programmers, but in many ways, a lot of Delphi programmers are kind of clung to Delphi and not. Um, so I think a lot of people, kind of hard to explain, but people have left Delphi and gone on to C# or Java or what have you over the years, and those that haven't are those that are a bit more close-minded about exploring new languages and things like that.
uh
So, I think there's a lot of and people get stuck into a particular version of Delphi and they don't explore the features um, of the new versions. So even experienced Delphi users, I think, could benefit from watching the videos. So I do make a bit of an effort to stay up to date. I think I've fallen back a bit behind lately with the FireMonkey, but um, yeah, and I'd like to actually make some videos on FireMonkey. I had a book offer on someone wanted to make me to do a book on FireMonkey, but I would like to, but I don't have the time presently. So
that yeah,
yeah,
books are a lot of time taken there.
yeah. Although you can kind of break them down a lot more. So videos, you kind of there's a bit more continuity you have to maintain throughout it. Whereas, so you've got to record the video over not too big a period of time, or have your laptop not be used too much for other stuff. So yeah. So I think I remember I think there's someone that would have been Borland at the time saying that they could tell um, which version of Delphi people got sort of started in by what features of Delphi they used. Whether they're using or, I don't know, the structure view and all that kind of stuff, because that's come and gone, and I think it's a Class Explorer and stuff. But now I think although they're a bit buggy, the refactoring tools are quite awesome, and I think people need to make better use of those.
Oh yeah.
I've seen other people. There's just extract method, and my favorite, the Control Shift V declare variable, which is not really for refactoring as such, but isn't that
Well, it's
menu.
a shortcut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just saves heaps of time going up to the top of the function. Which if I was writing probably better code, probably wouldn't be such a big deal because it'd be shorter procedures. So, but but yeah, I'm definitely working on legacy software. In this banking app I came across, there's a huge amount of business logic and stuff in it, and it's been added to it and what have you. And there was a procedure that was about 600 lines long and 17 levels of begin-end type depth to it.
Wow.
Yeah, a quadruple for loop, so I, J, K, and L loop variables. So I was quite impressed with that. I did have a little bit of a go at refactoring out, but I found it too difficult. There's no testing, no unit tests or anything, so it's quite an impressive piece of code. Which
Yeah, I'm sure. I remember I had some code maintaining once that I found some go-tos in, and I tried to factor those out, but it was non-trivial. So I was like, oh, I'll save that for later.
Yeah, and if you got no good way of testing it, it becomes, refactoring becomes quite challenging if there's no testing.
Yep.
Or you're not hugely familiar with all the side effects of the code, which is probably my problem at the moment. And I can't say. I've never done test-driven development, and I'm keen to sort of get into it. But all the projects, typically big legacy projects that I've been working on, and just I haven't really gotten in my head a mechanism of adding testing in there. Finding the appropriate the bits of code we can split it and get some tests around things.
I've found when I've done test-driven development that it changes the way you write code. And so I've heard some people say that actually the change is for better because it requires you to make smaller, more atomic pieces of code that are easier to test, and that makes it easier to maintain as well.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Certainly I've been writing code that should I be writing tests would be far easier to test, and that code is far better. It's far fewer dependencies and what have you. I've been doing a bit of research and using interfaces a bit more, and slowly coming to the conclusion that I've always thought that in data modules you should never reference a form. But I'm coming to the conclusion that forms shouldn't reference other forms either, and that you should use some sort of. I've been using interfaces and having sort of an application interface, which the various parts of the program talk to, but not talk to the forms. And probably if I was using a more recent version of Delphi, I'd probably be using Spring. Learn how to use that Spring for Delphi, which looks quite good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Cool.
Have you had any experience with that?
Spring for Delphi? No, I haven't. It's something I would like to use, but I just haven't used it yet.
Yeah,
I hear good things.
Yeah, Nick Hodges is writing a book, and he's covering it a little bit. So I've been reading the preview chapters and offering suggestions, mostly just grammatical stuff. I haven't critiqued his code quite so much, but it's quite interesting to see what other people point out and think that are issues with pieces of code or the type of language. I think these days, the formal language isn't as important. Like you can use conjunctions. I suppose you use you'll rather than you will, or it's, or it is rather than it is
Right.
I think is quite acceptable these days. And I think if you're going to have to read a technical book, you don't want to have reading it in a formal writing style. It just adds to the uh, just the unpleasantness of reading such things.
Yeah, yeah. At the same time, you don't want to be too informal because that can be an issue as well. But yeah, I agree. It needs to
Yeah,
be right in the middle.
yeah, indeed. So what time is it for you, where you are?
It is 6:15 in the evening.
Okay, so I'm not keeping you from dinner or anything.
Actually, my wife is wanting me to come out in a little bit here, so
Okay, so we should probably wrap things up. We've been talking. Oh gosh, how long have we been talking for?
over an hour, hour and a half in this call, and this
Yeah,
isn't the first call.
yes, we've had some technical difficulties. So, so hopefully the recording will come out all right. It looked okay, the bits I was playing with. So yeah. So is there anything you want to wrap up with?
No, just excited to talk with you. I think this is. I was started back in probably Delphi 2007. I started saying, it's a good time to be a Delphi developer, just because I see a lot of good things happening in Delphi, and I still see a lot of good things happening in Delphi. So
Yeah,
I still think it's a great time to be a Delphi developer.
yeah. I think now with FireMonkey is now pretty stable. I think the I just keep I couldn't really get into it. I kept coming across issues in XE2 and a few in XE3. Um,
Hmm.
I've not really written anything serious to sort of test applications, um, but XE4 looks pretty good. Um,
I've seen a few. So one thing we'll talk about this briefly, I guess. One thing about FireMonkey is it lets you do all sorts of stuff. For building a FireMonkey iOS device, you
yes,
can build all sorts of stuff. And I've seen a few apps that the person really needs to work on on refining the UI a little bit. And that FireMonkey's flexible, it lets you do that. But
mm,
I've seen a lot of apps that are really cool, doing some neat technological stuff that they look really slick and they're just really great apps, and people are being really productive with it and getting a lot of cool stuff done. So that's really neat to see that that's happening. So you know it's
yeah,
uh it's neat stuff going on.
yeah. A bit of a learning curve because it's a very different paradigm to the VCL in the way things are done,
Yeah, it
with
is.
the styles and just the level of containership you can have. Everything can be a sort of parent to another control. So
Hmm.
it gets a little
But
bit
yeah,
confusing. But yeah, so I need to pull finger and get into it a bit more. I've got some apps that I have an old property analysis software which I did a video on, a project which I wrote years and years ago for analyzing investment properties because I'm a property investor as
uh-huh.
well. And so I wrote that the Delphi 2006, I think, and yeah, I really need to get that as an iPad or iPhone app, and hopefully
Yeah.
Android in the near future. Um, so my intention is because uh, I think I want to produce a series of videos on the process of converting that to a FireMonkey app, so which would be quite good. But I've the farms are a big responsibility. There's quite a lot of stuff that you need to do. It's a bit more technical than a
Sure.
sort of standard residential block, feeding animals and what have you, and starting a new job. So I've lost a lot of free time, and I know I sort of quite tired in the evenings as well. I think because I'm unfamiliar with the code. It involves a lot of concentration and what have you, not getting into that sort of flow state.
Hmm.
Uh, it, I'm finding it very tiring, sort of concentrating all day rather than just sort of being aware of what needs to be done and the the code itself, the familiarity with it. Um, I'm still working doing real estate software 1 day a week, and I find that I can achieve quite a lot in that day, and not particularly tired at the end of it compared to
Hmm.
doing this bank software, which it requires me to be concentrate quite hard. What I'm currently doing is actually removing a lot of code, which is finding quite challenging. You have, you have say they're using Dev Express control, so there's a CX grid or something like that, and it has a pop-up menu associated with it. So there's a whole bunch of menu items plus actions, and there'll be events and stuff, and you just tracking all those down is quite a challenge. So I'm finding that it's okay, but it's hard to to work out all the bits that need to come out.
Yeah.
And one thing that would be quite handy is in removing events, knowing whether they're used elsewhere in other controls, because if you kind of just delete it, there's, does the safe delete refactoring option check BCL the controls as well?
I don't know.
I might have to try that.
You have to make a video on that.
Yeah, indeed. I've been playing around with CMPack a bit. There's a bunch of tools written by some Chinese developers, IDE plugins.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I found the structure highlighting that they've got in there just to be really helpful.
Very cool.
Because the indentation style is not what I'm used to in my new job. Oh, it's quite varied actually. And when there are 17 levels of of depth, keeping track of all of those is quite difficult. But having little lines joining the begin ends and what have you is very, very helpful. So I'll be doing a video on that when I get a chance.
Cool. Yeah, I used CMPack a while ago. I haven't used it in quite a while though. So
yeah, I bought a
couple they're still around.
Castalia recently because there's $101 off. There's a birthday sale, so I guess the developer was 101, so it must be the August deal. Anyway, I think it was 30 something, but the two disk, I forget his name. But anyway, yeah. So I'd used Castalia quite a long time ago in I think Delphi 7. I think there's like a cut down version given away, and I used that quite a bit and found the structural highlighting in that quite good. But I think there's the CNPack's quite a bit nicer
cool.
in that aspect of it anyway. So I'll be comparing and contrasting those over the next while. So and of course GExperts is the other one I've used. It's got some quite handy stuff in it.
It does. There's a number of features in there that are, well, for me, I can't use Delphi without them. It feels like sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
So
Okay, it was good talking with you.
Indeed. We'll have to do this again, and I'll try and get around to some of the other MVPs. And get some interviews. I suppose you'll be doing something similar.
Cool.
Possibly. I don't know. But
yeah.
Okay. So excellent talking to you. We'll
nice talking to you.
catch up again.
All right. Enjoy your day. Bye.
You too.